In this episode, we're talking Strategy Sprint, the one-week virtual consulting project. The MC team shares an overview of the project, including the training you get, what the project week looks like and what to expect, an overview of the clients you'll work with if you join, and a quick snapshot of who the case team leaders are. In addition, you'll hear from 2 previous strategy sprinters who will share their experiences with the program and what they got out of it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's dive in.
So what in the world is Strategy Sprint? If you kind of forgotten the emails that you got or just need a reminder, it's an immersive consulting project experience. So whether you aren't sure if consulting is right for you and you want a sense of, hey, like, it's a sexy industry, like it's got big brand names. I feel like I should want to do it, but I don't know if it's really right for me, or I don't know if it's going to actually help me fulfill my career goals. Strategy Sprint is a 1-week kind of simulated experience and an accelerated experience to help you figure out if this type of work, the heavy teamwork, the analytics, the extracting insights and putting them into a narrative story, the client management, if all of that is right for you. And so you'll get that experience in a 1-week consulting project. And if you know that consulting is right for you, it's a great way to build the skills that you need to then buttress your resume. So all of the things I just mentioned, the leadership, the teamwork, the analytics, the presentation building, the client management, you'll get to do that in a project. And then you'll get to really credibly be able to write on the resume that you've built those skills and applied them in a real world setting. And you'll be really credibly able to say in the interview and tell stories about the time when you served XYZ clients in a consulting context. And it's always much more powerful to be able to say that I know that consulting is right for me because I've done it, as opposed to I know consulting is right for me because I've heard about it or read about it. And so it just makes your behavioral interview stories that much more compelling. Tactically, what is it? We run you through a 1-day skills training, and Stephanie is going to lead you through that on Saturday, December 11th. We're in a subsequent slide, I'll ask her to share what exactly she covers and why those are the right skills to build. But we do a skills training so that we're not throwing you into the deep end without any kind of prep. The next day, on the Sunday of that weekend, we do a virtual case competition, which is like a dry run. So inside of your project team, you get to work on a simulated case problem for 1 day to apply some of the skills you learned the day before and just build a rapport with your team before you work with an actual client. That happens the weekend of December 11th and December 12th. And then about a month later, so after the Christmas holiday, January 10th to 14th, you kick off the project with the actual client. And so your team, led by a former MBB consultant, works for one of those businesses trying to solve a strategic problem. And we'll break down here in a couple of minutes what that project week looks like in detail. But at a high level, this is what you're getting yourself into if you apply and you're accepted, is world-class training, a dry run, and then an actual consulting project. So Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you just to ask you to share with us, what is it that you're teaching and why is it important for folks to learn this before project week?
Mm-hmm. We do a jam-packed day of training where we get to look at the pyramid principle, Excel, and storyboarding, especially as it comes to PowerPoint. These are going to be the core skills and platforms that you're going to utilize as a consultant day in and day out. Pyramid principle is about how we construct influential recommendations and influential PowerPoint decks, but it's also a way of thinking and it's a way of approaching our work, being top down, being recommendation driven, drawing out the insights and being explicit and clear to state those in any communication format. Then we're going to dive into, well, how do we apply some of that same thinking? And when we think about Excel and PowerPoint, the 2 favorite programs of today's corporate consultants, and the application, actually applying Excel, thinking about how we can be strategic in the way that we do quantitative analysis and the way that we create models, that we're not just going to be hired in the future to find all the data and to do all the calculations and computations. We have to be directive and focused and strategic in the way that we perform even quantitative analysis, let alone qualitative analysis. And because we only need to take selective insights from that work to bring into our recommendation and to really to draw insights from those to be able to communicate those to our clients and also internally within our team. That not only applies to the way we think about quantitative models and creating Excel files, but it also applies even more strongly to PowerPoint. When we think about storyboarding, storylining, identifying the main messaging that we want to have in each of our communications, each of our meetings, each of our decks, how we go about creating that storyline, how we go about thinking through creating the perfect slide. How do you create the consultant type slide? So we cover all these things across a jam-packed 6 hours. And then following that, we get the chance to apply those in a case competition. And it gives us a chance to have a low risk, no risk way to practice these things in the sandbox a little bit before we get to meet with and talk through the real business problems that our clients are facing and the real outcomes that they want to see achieved through our work together. So we've got another then jam-packed day, the next day, Sunday, December 12th, planned, where you will work in a small team and you will be actually getting to apply all of the skills and principles that we talked about just the day before and really get your feet wet with this. And this is going to help us really start to internalize some of what we've learned the day before and get a good quality rep in each one of these areas before we put it into practice in the real world.
And at the end of this day, you're introduced to your project leader, and they will introduce the client to you. We'll have a problem statement, some supporting data, and you'll have a little bit of homework over the holidays, not a whole lot, probably no more than an hour, but just to develop a hypothesis on the data that you would want to source prior to your client kickoff meeting on Monday, January 10th. And so you'll be introduced to the client, you'll be introduced to your project leader, they'll give you direction. You'll get to ask questions, and then you'll feel confident and prepared in what you need to do prior to the client kickoff the following month. So all of that will happen with plenty of time for you to wrap your head around it, do any preliminary research you want online about that industry or that client, and then come with some good questions to the client kickoff 4 weeks later. And so 4 weeks later, what happens is on Monday, January 10th, that morning, you start with a team kickoff. So again, your project leader prepares you for the client kickoff, right? Here are the questions. Here's our kind of hypothesis as a team. Here are the clarifying questions we want to ask. Here's what we want to get out of our time together with a client. We only have an hour. And so you'll get real world just exposure to how, an MBB consultant manages a client and how they run a meeting and how they get what they need out of a client in a way that is polite yet firm, and in a way that's directed, in a way that's strategic. And so beyond the actual analytics and the presentation building you'll pick up a lot just from watching how your project leader manages those interactions and empowers you to ask those questions and lead with your hypothesis in those interactions as well. So Monday morning is prep for the client kickoff, then the actual kickoff. And after that, your team will assign out work streams, and you'll own a work stream for this week that'll play an integral part in either getting to an answer or not for your client. And so your work will be make or break for the team. And starting Monday afternoon, you'll have a one-on-one with your project leader to just make sure that you understand everything, that you're on the right track. This is the co-working, the mentoring time, so that you can make sure that your work stream is on track and you know what you're doing. And you'll have a one-on-one with your project leader every day of the project week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you'll meet together as a team once a day. You'll align, you'll discuss, you'll meet one-on-one with your project leader, and you'll make headway on the research, the analysis, and the putting together of the final deliverable. And on Thursday afternoon, we'll do a dry run of the final presentation with a partner from our side. And so, this will be Stephanie. And so she'll play the role of partner on the project, and your team will come in and you'll think that you have a good presentation, and more than likely it'll just be okay, right? And I'll maybe let Frederick and David share about some experiences that they had in the partner meetings, but you'll get feedback from her. She operated as a partner at McKinsey. So, you'll get feedback from, someone who's been there, who's done that, and who's going to help you reshape the narrative, reshape the story, try and poke holes in your rationale, right? Play the role of the client, and just make sure that you've got a buttoned up narrative and a story going into the next day. And so you may have a little bit of fixing to do that evening, but then Friday morning, you'll meet with your team again for a final all hands meeting. You'll prepare for the final presentation. You'll have the 1 hour final presentation with your client. They're going to love it. It's going to be incredibly impactful for their business. We've done dozens and dozens of these projects, and we've not had one project yet where the stakeholder isn't absolutely thrilled by the work that you've done and doesn't say immediately that they're going to implement your recommendations. And so we don't expect anything to be different this time around. After the final presentation, you'll have a final debrief with your project leader, and then we'll get together in the afternoon for a fun group send-off. You'll get a certificate. You'll get to see snippets of presentations that other teams ran as well, so you can get some insight into those other projects. But that's project week. Honestly, it's a lot of work. And again, I'll let David and Frederick speak to that. But it is about a 40-hour commitment that week. You'll be owning a work stream, and you'll be held to high standards. But what you put into this project is what you get out of it. And our goal is to give you as true of a consulting experience as we can, to give you a robust experience that you can put on your resume and that will really give you some stories to tell in the interview as well. So who are these clients? Here's what I can share with you. You'll work for one of the following three: a national media player that's looking to pioneer an e-commerce strategy, a seven-figure regional services provider who's looking for a growth strategy they were just acquired, and an early-stage green transportation startup looking for a market entry strategy. So you'll work for one of these three clients, and your team is randomly assigned to one of these three clients. At the end of the case competition, we do a lottery that's totally transparent, completely public. And so you will be randomly assigned in a lottery to one of these three clients, all fantastic, exciting projects in their own way. Your project leaders will be former MBB consultants. And here's just an example of two of them. So Lisa, former McKinsey consultant, she scaled her startup to multiple seven figures. Nare, former BCG consultant, who's now taken on a leadership role in the entertainment space. Amazing opportunity to get mentored by former MBB folks who have been there, done that, and are continuing to sharpen their business acumen and drive impact post-consulting as well. So you'll get a chance to be mentored by someone with this kind of profile, and they're just fantastic leaders and fantastic consultants. Before we open it up for Q&A, David, can you just introduce yourself, kind of who you are, tell us a little bit about the strategy sprint project you were on, and I may ask you a couple of follow-up questions.
Sure. Thank you, Naman. And thank you, Stephanie, for the tough but fair critique. That was very helpful. So my name is David. I'm an MBA student in Vancouver, Canada, and I recently joined a tech firm here as a customer success consultant. The strategy sprint for me was life-changing. It really, there's that expression, you don't know what you don't know, and this really exposed that. The cross-pollination that comes from a team, a high-performing team, is it drives you. It's very interesting. But also, Stephanie mentioned the exercises at the beginning. And one thing I took away from that was that I didn't know the language of communicating with slides. And it was surprising to me how common that was. We'd all been using slides, and we took for granted that we spoke that language, but we didn't. And Stephanie and the rest of the team was really good at pointing out the lack of consistency in the narrative, which is also really a surprising blind spot to be made aware of, that we thought, oh yeah, this makes sense. And then we put it out there, and it's like, it made, when we realized with the feedback that it didn't make sense, there were huge gaps in our narrative. And so just in a week, I think that really upped our game. And it was something that I took away and actually injected into my consulting club here in Vancouver. And I've helped others. And some of them have gone into Big Four and MBB as well. So it's definitely a worthwhile program.
Amazing. Thanks, David. Before I ask my follow-up questions, I'll ask Frederick to introduce himself as well, and then we'll direct a couple of follow-up questions at you both.
Sounds good. Thank you, Naman. My name is Frederick Shiu. I'm a second year at Johns Hopkins Business School, and my background is from financial services. I got interested in consulting earlier this year through my consulting club and found Management Consulted, where I really wanted to gain more experience in terms of if this was the right direction for me to go, if I wanted to pursue this type of work. And this really gave me a really strong exposure to the project atmosphere, as well as the types of problems that I'd be solving on a daily basis. And to be honest, I loved it. It was one of the best experiences I've had this year, just working with teams and learning new skills in terms of storyboarding with PowerPoint, the importance of data visualization, and also presenting to an executive audience. So those three reasons, along with just learning more about what consulting meant as a career, and then also the coaching in terms of, I've actually coached with Lisa and Nare, and they're both amazing coaches. Especially in the context of leading a project, I got to see the cadence of how a project like this is run, and we were able to deliver a really strong product for our client. So really highly recommended.
Amazing. Frederick, to follow up on that, and then David, same question to you after Frederick answers, as much as you're able to, can you share with us who your client was and what the recommendation was that you came up with for them?
So our client was a destination management company that was seeking to grow in the US market. It was kind of in the middle of COVID, so it was a little bit of a challenging time. However, we made recommendations such as segmenting between business to business and business to consumer. And then we further segmented those into different ticket prices. This was basically, we decided that they needed a different pricing structure, needed to do a little bit different of marketing compared to their competitors. And based on changing trends in the market, we recommended they implement several strategies as it came to mostly pricing and marketing.
Mm-hmm. You also challenged the organizational model that they had to be able to support those outcomes, right? It's like they had only been kind of focused in this space and building up their US staff and team for a fairly short period of time. And so I thought the team had some good insights really along those lines as well. So diving into a problem only for a week, you were able to have a robust number of insights and recommendations on a number of different areas.
David, how about you?
Thank you. We worked with Lisa Bright, who is excellent, an ex-McKinsey consultant. Our client was a 7-figure clean energy company looking to expand their market. And we helped them through market segmentation and actually hone in on a market that they hadn't considered. And they went with that recommendation. I don't know if I should talk much more, but I'm happy to answer, if you have another follow-up question.
No, I know that you both were under NDA, so I won't push you much more than that. But just exciting to hear that, hey, you were able to get to a really strong recommendation in a week, and that they told you almost immediately that was what they were going to follow through on, which is incredibly fulfilling.
Yes.
Amazing.
And we had, on David's side, there was engagement from the highest levels of the organization, right? So just a really, and a lot of diversity with the clients that were involved there, kind of from leadership to project management to legal, like a lot of different voices in the conversation.
Yeah, we conducted a lot of interviews too with just potential clients, and it was really interesting. Different languages involved. It was the only kind of caution, and I don't know if this only pertains to myself, but if you have problems, setting a schedule for yourself, definitely work on that, because you can easily work all night. So it's really good to be like, okay, what is it that I'm after? And when will I know whether or not I've got it? So that you can just call it at that day and go to sleep.
That's really good, and probably applicable outside of strategy sprint as well. I think I need to take that advice myself. So that's really good, David. Frederick, do you have one piece of advice that you'd give folks if they're, on the fence about this? Like, hey, this is right for you, this is wrong for you, and perhaps, hey, one tip for success if you decide to do it.
So I feel like I'm pretty qualified to answer this question because I probably was in the exact same shoes as you are right now, where whether you're fully committed to consulting or you're pretty interested that this is the right thing that you want to pursue it, I would say definitely 100% go for it. It's been one of the biggest growth drivers for this year for me. And the more exposure I got to people who had actually done it, the MBB coaches were amazing, as well as meeting other aspiring candidates and seeing what they brought to the table in terms of diverse thinking and education. That really helped to build up the deck in terms of everybody's skill set. And I would say just go for it. And it was basically an amazing experience, and you won't regret it for sure.
Thank you so much, Frederick. Thank you so much, David, for joining us. Really, really appreciate your time and just honestly sharing about your experience.
Not sure if consulting is right for you? Strategy Sprint will help you find out. Don't have the right experience to land an interview invite? Strategy Sprint will help you build it. Or are you an incoming consultant who wants to be as prepared as possible for day one on the job? Strategy Sprint will give you the MBB mentorship and feedback you need to get ready. No matter where you're at in your career journey, nothing beats the learnings that come from top mentorship and real client-facing experience. We've got 8 spots left in Strategy Sprint. Apply today at the link in the show notes. Make sure to block off December 11th and 12th of 2021 for the skills training and the virtual case competition. In addition, block off January 10th through the 14th of 2022 for the project week. We're looking forward to seeing your application. Thanks again for listening to another episode of Strategy Simplified.